Correct domain name for a home desktop Linux machine. I have several machines running Debian, and during install, I left the domain name field blank. This hasn't affected anything so far, but I'm curious what the correct thing to set that field to is if you don't have a registered web domain and your IP is dynamically set. This URL gives a different IP every few months. Apologies if this is a new question, but I can't find any results via Google. What is the proper domain name for a home desktop with a dynamic IP address?
While associating with a domain isn't required, it's still useful to associate with one to avoid problems with hostname lookups of the host in question getting forwarded higher up in the DNS hierarchy. In most cases, having .local as domain is appropriate, as you will most likely be behind a router that does not forward your DNS name. I've also seen some systems use .home in place of this. .local is considered best practice, as a sensible router will not forward requests for host names belonging to this domain, so if you for some weird reason have a server named Microsoft.com at home, it will be treated locally, seeing as its FQDN will then be Microsoft.com.local. Another approach is what I'm doing since I have various machines and servers spread all over, and at home I use my desktop computer as part of my domain name. My DNS servers has a DNS entry for my desktop, with my router forwarding various services, SSH, mainly, to it. Also, I find this to be highly relevant, as changing the domain of a server can be more complicated than changing your legal name.
If you won't connect more than a handful of machines at the beginning, but you think it may scale, you can use something in the .local TLD, this URL. Something like your surname.local, maybe the domain name. If you don't even think to scale to more than say 10 to 15 machines, then you don't need a domain name. But if you think you will scale, choosing something non-exotic like the .local TLD will allow you to set up a full DNS server later to reach your machines. Make sure you read Wikipedia's page. The usage of something custom.local as a domain is something that has been done in the past, and is still done inside small businesses. Anyway, as you can see from the page, the .local TLD has been reserved for use in MDNS, for host names in the form hostname.local, which may collide with your setup. As per RFC 6762, you may use alternative lookup methods. For example, the custom DNS server I recommend to scale up your network, and the result is up to your ability not to mix up data and names.
If this is a single network, and you do not intend setting up a local mail server or a DNS server that connect to the internet, then the domain name is of no importance at all and can be left as blank. The domain name only serves to combine with the hostname to create the fully qualified domain name, FQDN, of the system. For example, if the domain name is company.com, and the hostname is host1, then the FQDN is host1.company.com. You will still need to set up a DNS server to resolve that name to an IP address, or have some internet DNS server point to your network. Without a domain name, the computers can still be identified on their network by their hostname. Since this is a home desktop being attributed a local IP address via DHCP, a blank domain name is entirely appropriate. Specifying a domain name would have no effect at all in that case. For more info, see Wikipedia, fully qualified domain name.
Under networking logic, if your domain name is not registered to let it be found out via DNS server, when someone pings with this domain name, then it will be useless what you decide to type in. All networking devices, including routers, work with IP addresses to reach another device. There is a special protocol to discover the IP address regarding its DNS name, with its domain name, by sending this kind of packages to some DNS server, and the DNS server would send the corresponding IP address to know what is the understandable recipient. Therefore, it's only relevant if you are going to interconnect your own network with some local DNS server in your local network and set up your hosts to use this local DNS server, or if you pay for getting a reachable network via public DNS servers. Supposing that you have a reachable network via public DNS servers, your pieces that are connected to this network need to be configured like server hosts to talk properly about replying requests to your domain name from another device, because the domain name works with server configuration. Hence, if you have your pieces without some server configuration, then the domain name will be useless for your pieces as well. For more information, I provide you Cisco documentation about DNS server as follows. This URL. Or you can check RFC 1034, the official documentation about the protocol that works for it. This URL.
If you want to support the channel, please consider subscribing.